Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Aquarian Mind podcast. Today's podcast, episode number 283. I'm your host, Jamel Crothers. I'm back, and the week off was very productive. I think that's the best word I can sum it up to be. And I say that because I finished my last book that I will be publishing next year. So all four of my books that I plan on publishing for next year are done. And I have copies of 3 of my books. So that's a beautiful thing. Anyway, it's Mondays with Mello, and today I want to delve into making heaven proud. And this is going to be a little bit more of a deeper, more vulnerable podcast. You guys know I share my truth. I share things that are part of me and who I am in my life. So today is definitely going to be one of those podcasts. Now, my life has been a roller coaster ride. And the one thing I can say is I learned a lot about life really fast. That death is something that's guaranteed in life. And I lost both of my grandmothers at the age of 8. Both gone in one summer. Snap your fingers and boom, they're gone physically from this earth. My grandmother on my mother's side is still with me in spirit, and I know she is surely a guardian angel of mine. In my mid-20s, I lost my grandfather on my mother's side. I lost my grandparents to a variety of health problems, which was unfortunate, but it's how life goes. And I reflect back now and look up and thank them for the moments I did have with them. And my grandmother on my mom's side would be in her late 80s as, I'm recording this. And I always wonder what she's thinking when I write all these books and I do these podcasts and book promotions and things of that nature. All of the work I'm doing is not only for God, but for them too. It's about making heaven proud of all that I'm doing. And for all the family members that I did know on a personal level, cousins that I was cool with that are no longer, here, and I think about them from time to time. My mother thinks about them more because she was closer to them. So, I get that part. And I don't necessarily feel pressure, to be perfect, but more of being myself in this journey. To know that this world is definitely in need of repair. Conversations exposing the truth for what it is. Certain topics that I've written about. And not to divert off of, this topic that I'm, focusing on in this podcast right now. But where we are in this world right now is crazy. It's a disaster. And there are so many questions of, what is going on in Hawaii and why those things happened. And there are certain things that are being said and certain things that, are being exposed. And for me, I'm an open book and a sponge to a lot of what's going on around me and in the world. And sometimes I feel guilty for, living my life and having fun, knowing subconsciously in the back of my mind that there's just so much going on in this world. And I wish I had superpowers to just make it all better. Anyway, I will say that it's important that I do my due diligence in writing about a lot of what's going on around us. And when I talk about, Hawaii and, all these disasters and things like that, I wrote about that in The World in Ruins. And that was a book that I published in, I'll say 2018 from what I can guess is what I'm visually seeing in my mind. So I wrote about a lot of things. And unfortunately, a lot of what I wrote in that book has come to fruition. And it's not a book that I wanted to scare people, but I wanted to really open people's eyes to what could be, right? So for me, writing and creating, these stories that's going to, garner changes, in this world, that's what's important to me. And that's what it's about for me. So I wear, my tattoo on my back of my grandparents very proudly on the back of my right side on the top by my shoulder blade. There are two hearts. One heart is for my grandmother, one heart is for my grandfather. And inside the heart, for my grandmother, it's the Italian flag. And for my grandfather, it's the Brazilian flag. So yes, I'm very mixed. I'm Brazilian, Italian, and Black. I don't know if I've ever said my nationalities on my podcast, but just so you guys know, those are my nationalities. All of that encompasses who I am. And I carry my Brazilian and Italian roots on my back, and I know that I want to make my grandparents smile every time I publish a new book or post a new podcast. And the biggest part is I hope that I'm doing right by them and they're just gushing over my small successes, because all the small feats that, I accomplish and feel empowered, it's a very good thing for me. And there's so many other family members that, are in heaven and watching me, cousins, like I said, that I do, on some semblance of a personal level, other family members that, were around when I was a little child and then they passed away, and, I really didn't get to know them on a more personal level. But, my mother, tells me about all of, family members that she knew, her aunts and uncles and things of that nature that I really didn't get to know on a personal level because I was too young to really spend time with them. And, my great grandparents, things of that nature. There's a lot, of great components to, my family and, who we are, what we're about. And there's a strong hold and a strong bond between all of us, no matter where we are, where we live, and how, we go about our lives. Excuse me. So hopefully, you, as you're listening to this, are thinking about family members that, you were very close to and knew, and, have a sense of pride in knowing that they're watching over you and what you're doing and your process and, how you're living your life. So, I always felt like this was a podcast that I needed to do. I knew I was going to do this podcast at some point, and I'm glad that I'm, recording this right now. And I'm quite sure that my grandparents are listening to this podcast as I'm recording this. So it's pretty funny. I love my life and where it is. And I've had conversations with my mom in the past. And I asked her a very interesting question. And I asked my mom, I said, if Nanny was alive, which is my mom's mom and my grandmother, where would we be in our lives right now? And she took a pause, she thought about it, and then she said, we are where we are supposed to be right now. Everything happens the way it needs to. And I was like, okay. Now that's an answer I didn't expect, right? Because I'm going over scenarios of, well, if Nanny was still alive, she'd, be 88 and, 88, 89, somewhere in that range. I think, well, matter of fact, she might be, actually I'm wrong. She'd be 90. So, my mom's like, yeah, things happened the way they did and the way they needed to. And it's true. It's very true. We don't know where our lives are going. And the one thing I really want to say is to make the best out of your life and to do things the right way and try to at least have some semblance of a healthy lifestyle. And what I mean by that is eating healthy, exercising, staying away from tobacco and drugs and heavy alcohol drinking. I mean, it's okay, if you want to have wine and, have a little sip of alcohol from time to time, that's great. But I will say that a lot of my family members could potentially still be alive if they made certain choices and decisions in their health. I won't delve into, the reasons why my grandparents passed away. I mean, but just to put it in a nutshell, there were certain health situations that happened that could have been avoided. Let's just put it to you that way. But like I said, I just hope that with every accomplishment, no matter how big or small, I'm making heaven proud. And I want you to think about who you're making proud in heaven right now yourself. Whoever it is, family members, friends, people that have been, an impact on your life, because they are now your guardian angels, whether you want to believe it or not. And just to add some real good purpose to this, when I was living in New York a few years ago, I was living with my mom, and I had this like futon bed that, I slept on because I didn't feel the need to want to have like, something, as far as a really huge bed that took up the majority of my room, because the room I had wasn't really big. But anyway, point is that when you walk in my room, to your left right away is my futon, and then there was 2 windows, and I had a little small desk with my laptop, right? And across from the futon, if you were to sit on my futon, would be my TV stand and my, TV, whatever the case is. And then I had 2 closets to the side of that wall. Anyway, so there would be times where I was sitting at my desk and getting my writing done. This was when I was at the height of writing a lot of books, on different subjects, things like that. The world we live in, kids with guns, one drink too many, a whole lot of books I was writing at that time. The irony of it is my grandmother would always sit on the edge of my bed, not closest to me, but further away from me. I would see her from the corner of my eye, and she would just sit there and watch me do work, right? So don't be shocked or anything like that right now. I know if you are listening to this right now, don't be like, oh my goodness, like what is going on here? I have seen, my grandmother in spirit plenty of times. Okay, so it doesn't scare me, it doesn't startle me, anything like that. The rule of thumb is to just know that they're there, not to be alarmed or shocked or anything like that. So it's a good thing. And I would tell my mom, like, she would, be around and be in spirit and things of that nature. And she would say, you see your grandmother? I'm like, yeah. And she's just like, I've never seen her, or whatever the case is, right? Until a few months later, my mom woke up, like, I think it was in the middle of the night. I don't remember. I think she was going to the bathroom or something. Matter of fact, no, I'm wrong. Excuse me. My mom had just got back from food shopping, and she was walking down the hall of our apartment where we were living, and she sees my grandmother in spirit and was like shocked. And that's when she told me that was the first time that she saw my grandmother in spirit, which is crazy. My mom would have dreams about my grandmother all the time. I've never really had a dream of my grandparents, but my mom would see her in dreams. I would actually see my grandmother in spirit. So just a little story for good purpose or whatever the case is. But if you are someone who does see family members or things like that in spirit, just know that they're your guardian angels and they're there to look after you and watch over you. So just a little tidbit of something that I've learned along the way. All right, guys, I just wanted to apologize real quick if you did hear something vibrating. That was my phone, and that was my mother randomly calling me because she does not know I am recording this podcast right now. But anyway, the aquariummindpodcast.com is the website. So if you feel the need to want to listen to my podcast there, wonderful. Like I always say, if you're on a certain platform, you want to stick to it, knock yourself out. aquariummindrights.com. Rights is WRITES. .com. That is my personal website where I have all my blogs, my books, announcements, events that I've done, things of that nature. All right, guys, I'm heading off. Hope you guys have a good week. Stay tuned for Motivation Wednesday and Book Insight Friday. Be good, everyone, and go accomplish your goals.